Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 347. Woo. As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard, Chris Saturn.
Hello.
Hello, Saturn.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hi, Justin. How are you?
I like
today?
that you always greet me like we haven't been sitting here in chat for half an hour talking to each other. Just, oh, hi. I didn't see you there. It's me, Saturn. I like Earthbound. Just
That's what I sound like.
Fireside chats with Saturn.
Oh, I didn't see you come in.
It's the intro to your spoken word album. Off to a great start. We don't really have any housekeeping. Things have I hesitate to say it and to put it in the universe, but things have been normal for this week.
Well, I'll believe it when it.
So I'm just gonna take
I'll
what I
believe it if
can
it lasts a good month. If we can make it all of March, then maybe. That we can consider that normal instead of everything else being normal.
My week, I have been playing games.
Yes.
I'm finally, I've not been sick for a week, so I've been actually playing video games. First up is Exapunks, which is one of the many Zachtronics programming games on Steam. And I was looking at a different game they had called Shinzen.io. And I know, like, all that Zachtronics does is programming games, like all their stuff. And they did one called Magnum Opus or something a while back that got a decent amount of acclaim. And so I was thinking about buying Shinzen.io, and I was like, well, I own Exapunks, and I've never played it, so I'll go play that and see if I like a programming game.
Yeah.
And I ended up putting several hours into it. And I was impressed because it's like actual programming.
Right.
It's you know, you play programming games, you know, a lot of it is, or a lot of them are really just logic games,
right,
you know, and they kind of circumvent the convenient factor of you're not actually writing code.
Right.
Exapunks, it's its own like language in the game. It's like an extremely like simple version of kind of like BASIC. And you're actually writing it. And they so basically in the game you're controlling little robots and they have to do a task. So there'll be these different servers and it's like, all right, you need to get this file over here, copy it over there, and delete the original. And you have to do it by programming these robots to move around this little like Lawnmower Man real network looking thing, right?
I'm so glad Lawnmower Man gave us a frame of reference for all of the future.
Finally, it's finally relevant. I've still never seen it.
Really?
Yeah, I've never seen it. I just know when I'm talking about goofy computer things to reference Lawnmower Man.
You can also reference Max Headroom.
Yes, perfect.
Comparable.
It was really fun. I really liked it. I to the point that I would kind of recommend it to someone that's like, hey, you know, I kind of want to try programming, you know, but I don't really want to sit down and learn a language. Like, it kind of introduces you to some of the ideas and type of problem solving you do in programming. But in a fun, interesting way through actual programming, you know?
Nice.
And I eventually started reaching problems that were so hard and taking me so much time that I was like, yes, this is why I stopped programming.
Right.
And of course, you know, for any puzzle you get stuck on, one puzzle I just went and looked up an answer. I just found someone else's program and I typed it in and I ran it and I was like, yes, this is just like the real coding experience, ripping off code from the internet.
Right.
But I'd recommend it, like, for anyone that kind of has maybe a passing interest in programming or maybe is a programmer and just kind of wants to practice those skills in kind of a more fun environment. Because for me, I remember when I was programming a lot, a big issue I ran into was like, all right, I'm learning these skills, but I have nothing to apply them to. And a lot of it was just trying to find tasks to employ them, you know,
right.
That wasn't just problems out of a textbooks.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty fun. I ended up putting it down because I'm not good enough at it. I might go back to it. But then I picked up a game that popped up. GOG emailed me about it. And I checked the email and it looked interesting. And then someone in the Discord mentioned it and said it was like Heroes of Might and Magic 3. And that's a game called Heroes Hour. And it's not like Heroes of Might and Magic 3. It is Heroes of Might and Magic 3 with 16-bit pixel graphics and literally every problem I had with Heroes of Might and Magic 3 completely fixed.
Nice.
So I saw, I think it was Rock Paper Shotgun described it as Heroes of Might and Magic crossed with vibrating football. And for people that aren't old enough to remember vibrating football, because I barely am, basically you would get a little arena and you'd put football players in it and it would just vibrate them around.
Yeah.
That was kind of it. So it's
just like real sports.
Yeah, it's Heroes of Might and Magic 3. You build up a little castle, you upgrade it every turn, you make heroes, you attach armies to them, you truck them around and try to take over the countryside. There is no multiplayer. The graphics are pretty simplistic. They have removed any kind of campaign from the game. But the combat is... You still have spells you cast in combat as the commander, you know, and you teach your hero spells and you can cast spells and abilities. You can pause and speed up the combat. But it kind of happens automatically. You can direct units, but it's more like a casual suggestion that they go this direction than it is necessarily like an RTS-style order.
Nice.
To the point that it's kind of useless, honestly. But it keeps what I really like about Heroes of Might and Magic 3, which is trucking around the countryside, building up my little empire, and putting together fun army configurations, but I get to avoid the tedious strategic combat.
It's fair.
So the strategy of the game comes from your army's configuration. And before the battle starts, you can arrange them. So you'll put like your archers in the back and your melee dudes up front, or well, you know, however you want to do it.
Yeah.
But it's just all of the best parts, in my opinion. If someone's like, oh no, I love the combat in Heroes of Might and Magic 3, you probably fucking hate it because it's gone. It's this special realm of strategy games that I love. It's these very casual strategy games that you can play very casually.
Nice.
There's no like hardcore number crunching. It's just casual world domination. And it's
like
in that
most
same
world domination. It's done very
right.
casually.
It's apparently it's like a game I talked about a while back called Circle Empires. Another very, very fun, interesting, kind of casual strategy game. You know, a strategy game that you can sit down and in 15 minutes understand everything in it and then just play.
Nice.
And it's not this thing of like, oh, I didn't understand this tech tree, or I misunderstood these word balance issues, or how to upgrade to these specific units or whatever. It's just real chill, casual strategy. And I cannot recommend Heroes Hour enough. I bought it like yesterday. I think I've put in 6 hours, maybe more in the last day. I beat all the skirmish mode. I've done multiple campaigns. It's just a blast. It's got tons of different factions. It has Steam Workshop support. There's already 4 or 5 factions on there.
Nice.
It's real fun, man. It is really my only complaint is that there is no multiplayer, so I can't force other people to spend $15 and rope them into it.
Well, you can, but you just have to judge them as they're playing it single player.
Right. So if anyone wants to stream it to me while I tell you what you're doing wrong, let me know. It's just great. It takes all of the dated and tedious parts of Heroes of Might and Magic 3, cuts them out entirely, and adds cute pixel graphics.
Nice.
It's been so much fun. Such a fun, just out of the blue indie surprise that I've ended up landing on.
Nice.
What have you been playing, Saturn?
No, I finished Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Now, is that the last one?
That was the third of the trilogy, of the new trilogy.
So it's the last one.
Correct.
It's the current latest one.
Yes, it is currently the latest one.
Okay.
I felt no need to go back and complete it this time. Like the last two, when I got to the end, I was like, no, I have to go and finish all the maps now. Now
this one's been kind of buggy for you, hasn't it?
It had some graphical issues.
Not game-breakingly, but...
Yeah, there were some graphical issues, but I think they were all related to the Series X upgrade that it got.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were present if I had just played it on an Xbox One or on a PS4. But it did play at a higher frame rate than it would have on those, so I got that. But I don't know, something about it just wasn't as compelling. I feel like it was just too complicated. Like there was just a touch too much to each of its individual elements that I just lost interest in completing all of the things in it.
So maybe kind of some feature creep.
Yeah.
By the end of the trilogy.
Right. And the story was fine, but it like for a series that already kind of goes off the rails as far as not sticking close to reality, it got a little weird as it got closer to the end. But I think they did a fine job of wrapping it up. So eventually, I'm sure they'll reboot the series again or continue it. But I think that was just enough of that as far as what I needed from the series. I'm done. I don't need any more at this point. And then I was just in one of those moods where I was jumping between games, so I wasn't playing much of anything else after that. But I did get a fancy new keyboard with my rewards points. I cashed
I've been on
in.
my keyboard currently since I was, I think, 17.
Yeah, I had a keyboard that I had gotten when I was in high school, and I kept it until 2008, so a little over 10 years. But I had to get rid of it because I couldn't get a new computer that still had a PS2 keyboard connector.
Yes.
And so I had to switch to USB anyway. So I just switched to wireless keyboards for a while there. But now I am back to a wired keyboard. This was the fancy ergonomic one that is separated and raises up in the middle and everything.
Oh, I think Logitech calls them the Wave.
Yeah,
Logitech
it's very
Wave.
similar to the Logitech Wave. It's the Microsoft version.
Yes, I think theirs is just called the
ergonomic
Ergo keyboard. Yeah.
But I had enough rewards points that I was able to get this and Chrono Cross at no cost. So
is Chrono Cross out?
No, it comes out next week or the week after.
Why do they release nothing for months and then everything at once, Saturn? This month is Chrono Cross, Triangle Strategy. Elden Ring is effectively this month. It came out right at the end of February. Right. They've got Kirby coming out. They've got next month is Advance Wars. Like, stop, just stop.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Kirby. Also, Chocobo GP came out.
Yes, that's the other one. Out of nowhere.
I haven't downloaded it yet. I need to. I've got a physical copy on the way next week, supposedly.
Is that one $60?
No, it is $40, I believe.
Thank God.
The physical is $50, but that's because it's Asia only.
Yeah.
But the game itself is $40, but there's a free multiplayer trial version that you can play. I'm a little wary of it though, because shortly after they announced the pricing for it, they said, and you can get these characters with season 1. And I'm like, I don't like that.
I'm excited for it, but I'm going to wait and see your reaction first because you're more sensitive to kart racers than I am.
True.
Going by the fact that you didn't like the very fantastic Sonic All-Stars Transformed. So if you don't like Chocobo GP, then I'm probably going to pass on it. If you like it, I might.
I really loved the Chocobo Racing on PS1. But that was also almost 25 years ago.
Yeah, that was kind of pre-Mario Kart heyday for you, I believe.
No, it was after Mario Kart 64.
Yeah, but wasn't like... Well, yeah, I guess you played a lot of 64, didn't you?
Yeah.
I don't know why in my head I was thinking it was like GameCube and Wii forward, but really it was all of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I started on Super NES with Mario Kart. But no, it was, I really enjoyed Chocobo Racing back in the day, so I'm curious to see if they were able to pull that off again. I can't imagine they have much of the same crew there 20 plus years later. So
yeah, the one guy in the back. Please,
I've got new course ideas. But no, that's about it for me.
Let's do the news.
Yeah.
First up, director Yoshi P commits to no NFTs in Final Fantasy XIV. Yet another company that we will not praise for doing what is the smart thing.
Especially considering Square Enix has already said they are pursuing NFTs. And also, he is also directing Final Fantasy XVI and said nothing about that.
Well, oh God, could you imagine?
Right.
Could you imagine if they had NFTs in Final Fantasy XVI?
Oh, man.
Oh, it would be horrible.
I'd be so upset.
It's reaching a point where it just feels like game companies that have decided not to put NFTs in certain projects are now just publicly announcing those to get good street cred. You know?
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, they were all announcing that they were embracing NFT, hoping to ride that train. And when they saw the backlash, now they're all trying to announce that they're not using NFTs in order to ride the backlash to that train.
Yeah, I remember Sega. If it's a money-making scheme, we won't do it. What did you think they were?
And then moments later, they announced they were doing it.
What did you previously think they were? Right. They literally are nothing. The Cyberpunk 2077 update bricks the game for disc-based players on PS4.
It had been months since we heard anything real bad about Cyberpunk 2077. At what point do you think that game will be done?
The point that it stops being one of the best-selling games in recent times, which is going to be never. It's still an extremely successful game, extremely high sales.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. I think, honestly, it's one of those things where it was just, the project was so mismanaged that they've got like a couple of years of catching up to do.
Right. I hear it runs real well on Stadia.
Yeah, great. Valve's TOC has been updated to no longer allow for discounts greater than 90% during Steam sales, which is a frustrating way to fix shovelware when really you should just be getting rid of the shovelware.
Yes.
But I guess, I don't know. I guess it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, 90%, I don't know. I realistically, I can't think of the last time I bought a game on Steam that was over 90% on sale anyway.
Right, it's not very common.
So I don't know that it's really negatively impacting anything. I just wish that they were taking better measures to clean up the marketplace.
Right, exactly.
Capcom announces Capcom Fighting Collection for all platforms. Super Nintendo, it's going to be on the Playdia, all of them. Features all 5...
Channel F.
Yeah. FM Towns Marty, all the weird ones. All modern platforms. Features all 5 Darkstalkers games, Red Earth, Cyberbots, Puzzle Fighter, Pocket Fighter, and Hyper Street Fighter 2, which is very exciting. I'm very excited for this.
For that. Yeah. They did, however, clarify there will be no cross-platform play, which is a little sad. But
which they didn't have that in the Brawler collection, which this seems very much kind of in the same kind of, I don't want to say engine, but the same framework.
Right, yeah. And I am, however, excited about the possibility of playing Puzzle Fighter and Pocket Fighter and Darkstalkers against people, so that'll be fun.
Also, Capcom went and found a stock image of the letters SF, put a 6 next to it, and then rendered Ryu's dick to announce Street Fighter 6.
My favorite comment about the logo that somebody made was the logo with the little 6 in the corner looks like a Discord server icon with a notification symbol.
Yeah, there was a lot of hubbub because they pretty much just used a stock image for the teaser logo. Yeah. And there was some hubbub about the fact that you could see Ryu's bulge.
Yeah, there was a notable bulge there. I didn't notice it the first time until somebody pointed it out to me, and then you can't unsee it.
I mean, did people think he was like a Ken doll? I mean, you know.
I mean, he could have been. Video game characters in the past have been like Ken dolls.
True. SMT Devil Summoners Soul Hackers getting a sequel 25 years after the original. Shin Megami Tensei is just in some kind of like golden age right now. Right. It has to be more popular than it's ever been. Yeah, between Persona and the main SMT, it's just got to be.
And Soul Hackers got a remake on 3DS a few years back. It was within the last 10 years anyway. Yeah. And so I'm guessing that kind of spurred them to give it another chance. But even then, it's been a little bit since that 3DS remake.
Yeah. Wonder Boy Collection announced for PS4 and Switch includes arcade versions of Wonder Boy and Wonder Boy in Monsterland, as well as the Genesis versions of Wonder Boy in Monster World and Monster World 4.
You know, I do want to take a moment to give Sega some praise here, because even though Sega isn't releasing this collection, by the way, they did a thing that everybody begs every classic game publisher to do. They took an old game that didn't come out in the West, They gave it a brand new localization, and then they made sure it was available fucking everywhere, because it was on Wii Virtual Console, then it was on 360 and PS3, and then it was on PC, and it's on PS4, and it's on Switch, and it's readily available. So not only did they localize a game that wasn't previously localized, but they have made it very available to anybody who wants to buy it, and that's I feel like they don't get enough credit for that. While Nintendo got huge praise for Star Fox 2 and for Earthbound Beginnings, when really those were just some prototype ROMs that were already on the internet, and they just released them. With this, Sega put a whole new translation on there, and I think they deserve more praise for it.
Yeah. Also, the River City games and the Kunio games have been getting never before released localizations and updates. The Kunio collection includes games that were never in English, never released stateside. That one feudal Japanese Kunio game.
Also, and then, River City Girls Zero is
River City Girls Zero is coming out. Yeah, and apparently they just did like a full animated music video accompaniment for it.
Nice.
So it's I do think it's smart to point out these companies doing the right things. Also, the people working on the River City games right now have never mentioned NFTs to my knowledge. So
that's good.
Just putting it out there.
Hopefully they continue to never mention NFTs.
Microsoft is closing down the Bethesda.net launcher. Purchased titles and wallet funds will be migrated to a Steam account, which is nice of them to do because Microsoft doesn't own Steam.
Right, yeah. I
you think they'd move it to the Microsoft
the
store.
Windows Store, yeah. But no, I'm okay with this. I think this is the right direction.
Good move.
Yeah.
Also, that makes me realize that just means for the wallet funds to transfer, Microsoft is literally just going to buy Steam gift cards for like thousands of people.
Right. Assuming that many people have funds in their Bethesda.net account.
Right. I mean, there's got to be at least a few thousand,
right.
Now, as big as Bethesda is.
Microsoft has been playing real nice with Steam lately, so, who knows?
Square Enix looking to make more 2D HD remakes of SNES games, and they should. Please do it.
Yeah, the interview I saw with this, the guy said that their top two that they really wanted to do were ActRaiser and Live Alive, and obviously they are doing one of those, and the other one they just did a full remake on. So now I want to know what number 3 is that they would go to next, but he didn't mention that.
Yeah. Tempest 4000 getting a Switch port. I didn't realize they made 3,999 previous Tempest games.
Well, they're budget releases.
They're straight to jewel case. That's what those ones were.
This was made by the same guy that made TXK on Vita, which was itself inspired by Tempest 2000 on Jaguar. And this one was previously on PS4 and Xbox and I think Atari VCS. And so,
Jaguar to Vita to VCS. What a lineage.
Pretty much.
Resident Evil website updated with new art for Code Veronica and Outbreak.
I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited about this. So this isn't just like new logo art or new title art or whatever. Like individual enemies and characters from those games that aren't in any other games in the franchise suddenly have new high-res renders. And that's exciting to me because they've never hinted that either of those games would ever get any kind of a re-release, especially Outbreak. Outbreak has only ever been on PS2. So just to have them hint that those could come back again has me very excited. I'm super stoked.
And finally, Valve is willing to work with Microsoft to bring Game Pass to Steam.
Do it.
Because I do like every now and then. So for people that don't keep up with me, I'm working in the games press again. I was previously and I am again. And so I lately, the last 6 to 8 months, I've seen a lot more of the news cycles as they've played out. And every now and then stories land that I'm like, why is this a story? Like, of course Valve would be willing to work to vastly increase Steam usage, like.
Well, I think what the way that the interview went is, as far as what I read, was they asked them if they were going to have their own competitor to Game Pass, and they said no, but if Microsoft wants to bring Game Pass to Steam, we would be willing to play ball.
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically bringing Game Pass to Steam is going to sell Kajunga more Steam Decks, because suddenly it's a Game Pass machine.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, of course they would want. Why would they not want that?
Depends on how much money they make or lose on a Steam Deck, really. Because
was that a Gabe Newell interview? I think it was. Yeah, that came out of, because all of a sudden he's come out of like whatever mountain that he lives in.
He came out of his cocoon
to deliver Steam Decks and talk about the games industry like it's still 20 years ago, like we're normal human beings still.
He finally left his George R. Martin impersonation contest to address us again.
He always wears glasses that look like sunglasses, but they have regular glasses lenses, and you're like, Gabe, you gotta stop, man. What are you doing? And he's always in those sandals.
Yeah. I really want to see him and George R. Martin and Guillermo del Toro in one place at the same time.
You can't.
No,
you can't.
I don't think you can.
It just depending on his beard length at the time determines which one of them he is that day. So George R. R. Martin, he puts on the hat. Guillermo del Toro, he puts on the little round glasses.
Yes.
Gaben, he puts on sandals. And that's his three. People were salty about him hand delivering some Steam Decks.
Really? Why?
People were mad. They were like, "Where's mine?" And I'm like, "Not that one. What do you fucking mean? Where's yours?
Do you live next to Valve?"
The entitlement, like, I knew PC gamers were entitled, but Hall's just, where's mine? Like, fuck, man.
How many days after people start getting Steam Decks till you think we see a news article of somebody permanently damaging their Steam Deck trying to install LEDs on it?
Oh, man, it's going to happen. That thing is going to get ripped wide open.
Oh, yeah.
That brings us to the topic at hand. We're talking 2003. Which is
I was there.
Yeah, I was there as well. Finally, a year that I was actually like around for and remember happening. Because what was the last one we did? 1990. Well, we did 97. I remember 97.
We did 99 and we did 94. Those are the 2 years we did.
Yeah, I thought we did 97.
I don't believe we've done that.
I think 97 we kept saying we were going to do because it's such a major year, and we just went for 99, which I remember, and 94, which I do not remember.
Right.
My memory, for some reason, starts at 1995. So obviously, whenever Jurassic Park came out, that's where my life starts. And you put in the notes, you said, do we say 2003 or 2003? And the correct answer is 2003.
I put that in there because that was a legitimate question still by that point. Because I remember when Madden 2003 came out. And we were taking pre-orders for it, and we had to answer the phone because I was working at Electronics Boutique, and we had to answer the phone by saying, "Thank you for calling Electronics Boutique, where you can pre-order Madden 2003." And I remember my assistant manager saying, "So do we say 2003 or 2003? Like, which sounds less stupid?"
2003 sounds wrong.
And I was like, what sounds less stupid is not telling people to pre-order Madden when they call us.
I worked at GameStop later on, and I was saying where you can pre-order Madden 2004, 5, 6, and 7. Right. I don't know why you didn't just say Madden.
Right. Yeah.
Just say Madden. They know there's a new one coming. It's not like they're going to be like, which one? The fucking new one, you numbskull.
Yeah.
So,
that same dude, we did a month where Acclaim paid us, and so we had to answer the phone saying that we were your Acclaim gaming headquarters.
Oh, no.
Man, that hurt your soul to say that out loud to another human being. And that same assistant manager was like, I think we could be more clever if we said, thank you for calling EB, where you can acclaim your games. And I was like, that doesn't grammatically make sense.
Yeah, that does not what that means.
But he convinced our DM, and then we had to say it. It sucked so bad. And I remember that was the month Turok Evolution came out.
I remember our default greeting was, "Thank you for calling GameStop, where you can buy and sell used games. My name is blank. How can I help you?" Which is already a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of words.
But when there was new shit coming out, it was that plus whatever the new shit is.
Yeah.
It was terrible time for video game retail. Thankfully, GameStop is long gone and dead, and they don't exist anymore.
No, I think the real thing is, thankfully, nobody uses a telephone anymore.
This is true, yeah. Can I just text GameStop?
Probably.
Thank you for texting GameStop, where you can buy and sell used games. So I do want to mention, while we might mention some overseas stuff, this is really going to be focused about things in the U.S. in 2003, because that's what we were there for.
Yeah.
I didn't spend a lot of time in Japan or the UK or wherever when I was a kid.
I was mostly in Croatia that year.
Is that what all that Croatian gaming? Just hardcore into that. So as far as kind of where we were gaming wise in 2003, which is the correct way. I do like that no one called it the aughts until they were over, and then we were like, we should call them the aughts. And by we, I mean me.
Yeah, I remember hearing like one or two people saying that, and the rest of us laughing them down. So that didn't really stick.
I just realized I did my math wrong. I was 15.
Oh, good.
Because I was born in 1988.
Yeah.
So 2003, I would be 15. I put 13 in the notes.
Math.
So I was 15. So I would have been in early high school.
Yeah.
So early high school for me would have been. This would have been right on the cusp of me getting a job at GameStop. Because when I was 15, I got a job at a taco place. And then the second I turned 16, I applied to GameStop, and I was working there within a month or two.
What taco place?
Taco Casa.
Oh.
I was a cook at Taco Casa.
I always like that their menu refers to their different tacos as chicken or meat.
Yeah. Do you want chicken or do you want meat? Which one do you want? Because the chicken's definitely not meat. Yeah. So I had, in this era, it was a lot of GBA for me.
Yeah.
Tons of GBA. GBA and GameCube were my primary systems. I think it was around this time. I would have had an original Xbox by this time. I know we had a family computer, and I played a game or two on it. But it was kind of rare. Other than the odd Diablo here and there, I wasn't really doing much in the way of PC gaming until a little bit later in high school. This is just before that era for me. Yeah.
I was already working at EB. I was living with my girlfriend at the time. I had upgraded my PC for Warcraft 3. Was the last time that I had upgraded it at this point. And so it was probably still fine as far as playing games. I had all three of the consoles by this point, because I want to say I bought my Xbox in 2003. It might have been real late 02, but I think it was 03. I bought my GameCube and PS2 before that. And of course I had a GBA. I was but I mostly played on the consoles. For GBA, it was just JRPGs mostly. And also by the end of the year, I had an N-Gage because the Nokia rep gave me one because I was working at EB. That was the
and they couldn't get rid of them any other way. So.
Nope. But they were like, no, you should take one so that you can tell people how great it is. And I was like, do I have to tell them that if I take it? And they were like, but you will. You'll play it and you'll see how great it is. I was like, okay. And within a week of me having it, I installed an NES emulator on it, and I was like, this is great. I can play Kirby's Adventure.
It's a great way to steal games.
Yeah.
Before we get into like titles and stuff, let's talk, or really the industry. Let's talk platforms, kind of where everything was at the time. So talk to me about PC stuff, and then I've got some magazine clippings I want to break out.
Oh, I need to. Do you have these where I can see them?
No, I own the magazines. Okay. They're in my hand.
Fine.
So sorry.
Windows XP was pretty much taking over the computer landscape at this point. It had been out for a year or two. And there were still plenty of games that supported Windows 98 and ME and 95. But that was already starting to phase down a little bit as XP was taking over.
I remember XP came out in I mean, in the historical scheme of, nowadays it took forever to take over, but in the scheme of like how computers progressed back in that era, it felt like it took over fast.
Oh, yeah,
which it was a few years.
Right.
But it felt like it came out and it was like nothing had the old stuff anymore. Everything was Windows XP.
Yeah, well, and there's plenty of good reasons for that. And if we ever do a OS podcast, I will go on at length about the advantages that XP had.
Oh man, we should. I don't know why we've never thought about that. We definitely should.
Because it's only tangentially related to gaming.
Yeah, I get. Well, I mean, you got to have an operating system to play games. So there you go.
Let's talk Commodore Basic. And then by that point, Mac gaming was already kind of becoming an afterthought. This was the era after most companies had stopped supporting PowerPC Mac and before Intel Mac was a thing. So it was starting to become a drought on the Mac side. Linux gaming was trying to gain some traction by 2003. There was a handful of games that supported it. Usually you had to hunt down a special Linux version of a game, which most stores didn't carry. Occasionally you'd see something like Unreal Tournament that would have the Linux version on the disk with the Windows version, but wasn't particularly common. There was still a notable divide between PC and console gaming. You would see the occasional overlap games that would release on both PC and console, but for the most part, there was still that divide by that time. Games that were big PC games weren't usually on console. Games that were big console games weren't usually on PC.
Yeah. I have in my hands a copy of Computer Gaming World, and this is from January 2003.
Okay.
And this is the Ultimate Game Machine Guide.
Score.
And I just kind of wanted to give an idea of like what an ultimate game machine looked like in January of 2003.
Did it have a Pentium 4 in it?
Well, let me tell you.
Okay.
There's 7 listed here.
Okay.
Every single one of them is running a Pentium 4.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is running an ATI Radeon 9700 Pro.
Ooh, that's a good card.
Several of them with TV out.
Yeah.
And I did
All in Wonder?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Their Ultimate Saturn, the Ultimate Gaming Roundup. I wish you could see. I really should have found a digital copy of this because I know you like old PC stuff, and it would have been fun. Some of these I do notice. Like this one is the Vicious PC Paladin.
Oh, score.
And I forgot about PCs in this era having this. Sound was a big thing.
Oh yeah. You
and
wanted
having
to have
high-end speakers.
The
right?
Audigy sound card was huge.
This one has the little front sound panel with like 50 different jacks and knobs and stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, they're all running Pentium 4. They're all running ATI Radeon 9700 Pros. And I forgot about this era. The Pentium 4, when it came out, nothing else mattered.
Right.
It just dominated everything immediately.
Yeah, and then they released the Pentium 4 HT, the hyper-threaded model.
Yep.
And then AMD came out with the Athlon 64, and then suddenly everybody just shifted right on over to AMD for a while.
Yeah. These are all running 21 to 22 inch monitors. They've
CRTs
all got between
too.
half a gig and a gig of RAM.
Nice.
They've
and
all
a gig
got
of RAM on XP was something. You were smoking.
The gig of RAM one is there's 2 of them that are tied for the most expensive. It's the Vicious PC Paladin and the Voodoo E-Class Glycol.
Oh man, Voodoo! I remember them.
Both of them with like 5.1 surround speaker systems and hardcore sound cards, and they're both $4,000.
Nice. Yeah, that was about average for a Voodoo.
Yeah. And they come with mice. Most of them come with Microsoft IntelliMouse Explorer 3.0s.
Good.
Which Microsoft has famously, resuscitated.
It's in my hand right now.
Company-wise, it's Alienware, Voodoo, Vicious, Falcon Northwest, which is still in production today, ABS, Dell, and Gateway.
Well, Alienware is owned by Dell, and they're still around. And Voodoo is owned by HP, though they're not still around under the Voodoo name. They do HP Gaming Omen, which is the same as the Voodoo Omen used to be.
Yeah. Now, this Voodoo E-Class glycol, and I'm reading directly from the notes, ships with a glycol-filled radiator that's attached to the fans on the top. Its purpose is to keep the overclocked graphics card cooled.
Yeah.
Machine also ships with Power Strip pre-installed, a utility that allows the system builders to overclock the Radeon 9700 Pro. There were artifacts on the screen during IL-2 Sturmovik during their testing. And it's funny because I remember PC gaming in this era. Like, I think we forget how good PC gaming is now.
Yeah.
Because 2003 is not that long ago, and it was still kind of jank as fuck.
It was 20 years ago. Let's be fair.
Oh, my God. It was still fucking jank, man. It was janky,
right.
you know.
Yeah.
It was better than it was previously, for sure.
Right.
But it was still like, man.
DirectX helped a lot, but you still had to install some, like, special version of DirectX with almost every fucking game.
Yeah, every one of these chips with a massive fucking subwoofer. It's crazy. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I've got another issue of Computer Gaming World when we get to software titles later, from later in 2003. But I just kind of wanted to talk about this era of PC gaming, this weird focus. Even on this other issue, all of them have these like 5.1 surround speaker systems.
Oh yeah, yeah. All the guys I knew that were like PC Master Race guys all had their speakers mounted around their computer so that they could hear everything in surround.
And it was crazy, man. Yeah. And this shit everything ran so fucking hot.
Oh yeah.
Everything was like about to burst into flames.
Right. Yeah.
Just constantly.
That was the era when my PC Master Race friends were all trying to get into water cooling on their computers.
Yeah. Well, also the people making parts for these things didn't know fucking shit about cooling anything. Like in the 20 years since, we've learned so much about how to efficiently cool processors. Things are much lower, like TDP. They run at lower temperatures. They take less energy. It's so much more efficient. But this era was like, I mean, like
everything was on fire.
Everything was crazy hot all the time. Everything had like 1,000-watt power supplies. Like even today, like 1,000-watt power supply, you don't need that.
No,
even in like a pretty hardcore gaming rig.
But
back then, everything was like hot. Energy hog, 50 speakers velcroed all over your wall, running your Pentium 4.
Plus, you had your big ass CRT monitor.
Yes. Yes. Oh man. Anyway, I just wanted to jump in that little Wayback Machine for a minute. Right. Now, granted, I never owned a gaming PC in this era, as I said, but I got into PC gaming a little bit later, so everyone I knew had one of these. Yeah, I didn't. But all my friends did.
I didn't have anything near that. I had a much
I mean, theirs wasn't this high-end either, but they had those types of, you know what I mean? You'd go over and you're like, oh, it's not just like an E-machine from Walmart? You know, you're like, oh, you know.
But by that point, I had already kind of built my machine. And it was, you know, from recycled parts, a lot of it. But I had customized the video card. I had upgraded the motherboard and the CPU and I'd put, you know, everything but the hard drive and the case had pretty much been replaced. So I was already kind of building my own machines. I wasn't anywhere near that, but I could handle Warcraft 3, and that was exciting for me.
Yeah. Saturn, talk to me about the console landscape in this era.
Yeah, so for people who don't remember this era, PlayStation 2 had released a few years earlier in late 2000 and was absolutely decimating the competition. It was...
PS2 was just the default game system. Like nobody even... that was it.
Yeah. Xbox was in a distant second worldwide. The GameCube took second place in its home market in Japan. Those were both released in late 2001. The original PlayStation was still available for sale. They were still making new consoles as well as new games.
Wasn't FF9 2003?
No, that was 2000.
Was it? I don't know why I thought it was so late.
Because FF10 is 02.
Oh, yeah.
Or 01.
Yeah.
So the final N64 and Dreamcast games had both released in 2002, so a year before this. So a lot of the stores were already moving those two consoles into the legacy category and only carrying pre-owned stuff, and it was starting to fall apart, and they weren't taking care of it, and they were throwing away boxes and that kind of stuff. Also that year in 2003, Nintendo officially stopped production of the Famicom and Super Famicom in Japan.
Yeah.
Which, to think that they were still producing the Famicom and Super Famicom in 2003.
It's crazy.
That's pretty insane.
Yeah, really, this whole era is just it's so dominated by the PS2.
Right.
And it like
like the
Xbox
PS1
existed.
The PS1 won its generation. Like it
Oh yeah.
it had a strong lead over the N64 and a ludicrous lead over the N64 or Dreamcast. But the PS2's lead over the Dreamcast, Xbox, and GameCube is insane.
Mm-hmm. It's and it was immediately everything was on PS2, ported to PS2. Everyone played everything on PS2. It was,
Right.
If you were playing some other system, there was a reason for it.
Yeah, it was some exclusive game.
Yeah. And the PS2, was it cheaper by this time, by 2003?
Yeah. They dropped in price in 03, I believe, to $199.
Yeah. I would have gotten one probably not long after this, because my brother had one pretty near launch and I was never allowed to touch it. And I don't think I had one yet, but I think I got one. I think by 2005 I had one.
Yeah, there was a pretty aggressive price war between Sony and Microsoft, and I want to say it was in 03 when they dropped from $299 to $199, and then later that year they dropped to $179 or $149, somewhere in there, which forced Nintendo to drop down to $99. So it was a pretty aggressive pricing back then. To think about buying a brand new console while it's still relevant for under $100 is crazy today.
This might have been the year that I got my Xbox. I don't remember. It could have been. It would have been around this time. It was early enough that it wasn't like totally like irrelevant yet.
Right.
But it was late enough that it came with an Xbox Live Gold card, and it was cheap enough that I got it for like a birthday or something. Which puts it in the $100 to $200 category.
So I looked it up. I did already have an Xbox going into 03 because I got my Xbox the week Steel Battalion came out, which would have been late 02. So I had all three consoles going into 03, but still PS2 was dominating what I bought even.
Let's talk handhelds.
Yeah.
And by that I mean handheld because it's the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
Game Boy Color is dead by now.
More or less.
The SP has come out and made the Game Boy Advance now something that people can play and view within their own home.
Oh, yeah.
And Neo Geo Pocket Color was a thing. This was like, it was out right now, but this is when the blister packs started.
Right.
And I wish I had picked some of those up.
The original release had already come and gone through clearance, and now is in blister packs. And this is probably when I bought my Neo Geo Pocket Colors, Neo Geo's Pocket Color.
Yeah, that's the correct one.
Yeah.
Sure.
And because I got one in the blister pack and the other one used, and they were dirt cheap. It was great. And
obviously PSP is still a very distant thing. DS is still DS was 05?
04, 05, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So it's still a little ways off. I mean, GBA is the only game in town.
There's the N-Gage, Justin.
It's the only game in town.
But the N-Gage is right there on the shelf.
Yeah,
it even has a Sonic game.
No, we saw it.
Yeah,
I just didn't care. And I played so freaking much GBA.
Yeah.
Oh man, I would come home from school. I would lay on the couch. We had like a little love seat in our kitchen, like in our dining room area, and like a second TV in there. And I would lay on the couch. I would put the TV on, and I would just be in the kitchen playing Game Boy, watching TV all night, every night. And that's how I spent my awkward early teenage years.
I remember in 03, because I was living with my girlfriend at the time, I used to come home from work, and if it was a day that she was working late, then I would just turn on the political news channel and grab my GBA and play JRPGs while binge watching news for hours, because I am the saddest person alive.
No, you're not. There's at least one person sadder than you. We'll find them
Someday.
Don't you worry. Let's talk arcades.
Yes, sir. What arcades?
Because DDR kind of was a thing in this era.
Yeah, in the real late 90s, probably up through 02 or 03 is the height of the DDR era. By 03, I think it was already starting to decline.
It was never really like much of a renaissance. It was just more like a noticeable thing.
It kind of felt like a novelty in retrospect. Like kind of like the plastic guitars that everybody bought for a while.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, the same Guitar Hero thing.
Yeah. And so DDR was already starting to fade down as far as popularity goes. But you had light gun games, and really any game with a strange input method was really starting to come into prominence. You still saw some fighting games in this era, but that trend had already started to die off in arcades anyway, unless you went to a specialized arcade where they were doing tournaments or something. But
I played a lot of light gun games in this era.
Yeah.
The movie theater I frequented always had the newest Time Crisis.
Nice.
And I remember, like, I'd always seen light gun games around, but in this era, it felt like they were getting so elaborate.
Oh, yeah.
It reached a point where, like, you've got a duck foot pedal, the gun is giant, and it, like, actually actuates and moves. And it's light gun games got crazy in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I was, the EB that I worked at was right next to a GameWorks. Yeah. And so sometimes after work, I would just roam right over to GameWorks and spend half an hour in there, just spending way more than I needed to.
Mm-hmm. I speaking of unique input methods, in this era, I remember a game that I owned on PC at home called, what was it called? It was called Beachhead 2000.
Yeah.
And the arcade game was this big, like, thing you pulled down over your head, and it had handles on the sides with triggers. And in it was a screen, and you would rotate, and it was a 360-degree rotation, and it was like a shooter. And it's the dumbest, like, most mindless game. It's like obviously just like some shit they made for arcade because it had a unique input method, which is put a bucket on your head. But I had the fucking home port of it. And it was just literally like guys just running at you, and you just shot them with a machine gun, and that was the whole fucking game. But I played so much Beachhead, and I remember I'd get excited to go to the movie theater to play their, like, arcade version of Beachhead.
Yeah, I played a lot of Monkey Ball in game at that point, because they had the big goofy banana shaped joystick. And yeah, that was just as impossible in the arcade as it was at home.
Let's talk kind of industry landscape and what that looked like at this point in time.
Yeah, so we had G4 was a thing at this point. And there were still plenty of gaming magazines, though you did start to see more online presence from gaming media, and it was starting to impact the sales of the magazines and the strategy guides, just barely.
This was sort of prime time for games media for me.
Yeah.
Magazines were on the way out, but there were still a lot of them, and this was my height of reading them.
Yeah.
I knew about online publications, but I still just got most of my news magazines or my news from magazines or from watching extended play on G4.
Yeah. I think it was still on Tech TV then, because that was before they merged.
Oh, yeah. Well, then, because after the merge, it became X-Play.
Right.
Because first it was just extended play, and I remember watching that. And I do remember I'm young enough that I kind of missed the earlier era of video game centric programming. So I missed Captain N, Super Mario Brothers Super Show, Mega Man, like all
Video Power.
Yeah, like I knew of them. I saw every now and then they'd play like at 5 a.m. on a Saturday.
You didn't get to see any 18-year-old fourth graders?
No, not until we did that episode. And God, I can't quit thinking about it now. God, what an episode. Fuck. And so I kind of missed it, because a lot of it was sort of from the late 80s Nintendo craze,
right.
is where we got a lot of cartoons that kind of went into the early to mid-ish 90s. Yeah. But I was born in 88, so I missed all this stuff. So the idea of seeing video games on TV was insane to me. I was like, they're showing video games on the TV, and it's not a commercial. They're just talking about them like they're a thing people care. It blew my mind. It just blew my fucking mind. And so watching Tech TV and I really have because the merger was a little later. Yeah. Wasn't the merger
I think it was 04 was when they merged.
Was it 04? I don't know why I remember it being later. I watched a ton of Tech TV.
Yeah.
And then when it became G4, I kind of quit watching it.
Yeah,
I remember I would tune in just for X-Play, and that was it.
I had the opposite experience because I watched a ton of G4 when they were still before the merger, when most of their shows were just about video games and like about the history of video games and about video game designers and video game creators and everything.
Yeah. We didn't have G4. We just had Tech TV.
Yeah. We just had G4 and not Tech TV.
Weird.
And then when they merged, and
it's weird those wouldn't be a fucking package,
right?
Like who's?
Well, those two different companies made those channels, and then those.
Right. Just I mean, like when you're making the cable package, it just seems weird. That, I don't know.
My cable provider didn't have any of the company or any of the channels from the company that did Tech TV.
Yeah.
So, but no. So I watched quite a bit of it, and then after the merger, I just kind of fell out of it because they started doing more general entertainment stuff, and I just didn't care.
Yeah. Let's talk retail and rental market.
So,
and kind of where that is.
Yeah, so we had what used to be Babbage's had almost completely turned into GameStop at this point. There were still a handful of locations that still had Babbage's or Software, etc., or some other branding, but most of them had become GameStops. EB was the last major competitor to GameStop because they wouldn't get acquired for another couple of years. And then Blockbuster had pushed out most of the competition in the rental market. There were still some major competitors like Hollywood Video and Movie Gallery, but a lot of the like smaller mom and pop rental stores were starting to go away just because they couldn't compete with Blockbuster anymore by this point. Also,
Blockbuster seemed to be pretty heavily focusing on games as well.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It kind of, I remember in this era, anytime you were in a rental store, you were not there for movies, and there were very few people looking at movies.
Yeah, and
that could have just been my location, but I remember that.
Yeah, I think the expansion of cable channels helped that a bit.
Yeah.
And also this was when Blockbuster had started Game Rush, which was their store within a store concept that was a video game store inside of the Blockbuster.
It was also stupid.
It was stupid, but they did do buy sell trade just like GameStop does. And then also Hollywood Video had the same, but they called theirs Game Crazy.
Right.
Also stupid. But Game Crazy had a bigger inventory and carried a lot of stuff that was exclusive. Like they exclusively got the Slime controller for the PS2.
Oh, really? Well, I remember we got it at GameStop.
No, it wasn't. It was a different Dragon Quest thing they got that was exclusive. I don't remember what it was now.
Yeah, because the Slime controller, I remember because the guy, Bill, that pushed the carts next door at Albertsons came in every day asking if it was out yet.
Yeah, because now I'm thinking that I think I pre-ordered mine at EB when I was there. But there was some Dragon Quest thing that I had to go to a fucking Hollywood Video for. And I don't remember what it was, but they did have a handful of exclusive. Oh no, it was the stupid. It
was a Draki cord extension.
No, it was it wasn't Dragon Quest. It was Hori. It was the Game Boy player controllers because I couldn't pre-order them at my store, and they weren't sure if we would get them. And so I went to Game Crazy, and they had like 20. So I just picked up one of each color and left.
Well, there you go. That's about $200 a pop now.
Yeah,
you did.
Now they are.
You did it.
They were $20 then.
Let's talk software.
There was software released that year.
I have this issue of CGW. This is from August 2003. And it's funny, this is on the same page. So on the page with their CGW Top 20, because I do want to mention this, because at this time, PC gaming, and you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, is really kind of its own separate beast.
Yes.
Yes, it's video games, but it still feels very separate from console gaming. Interestingly enough, Amazon has an ad here. which is this month's top 5 pre-orders and top 5 releases. Top 5 pre-orders is Flight Sim 2004, Homeworld 2, Counter-Strike Condition Zero, EverQuest 2, and Madden 04. Top releases was Star Wars Galaxies, Warcraft 3, Frozen Throne, Neverwinter Nights, the expansion, the Untitled expansion, Tomb Raider, Angel of Darkness, and Enter the Matrix.
Oh man, that was a bigger release than we remember. That I remember there was a lot of pre-orders for Enter the Matrix and a lot of disappointment in the next week or two.
I think PC Gamer, like last month's issue, did a whole multiple page feature on Enter the Matrix and just how fucking weird that whole situation was. CGW Top 20 right now, or right then in August of 2003. Number 1 game is Battlefield 1942.
Yeah.
And then you have CNC Generals, Medal of Honor Spearhead, Unreal 2 The Awakening.
Oh yeah, I remember when that came out.
Rainbow Six 3 and SimCity 4, and really everything on the list is a strategy game or a first-person shooter.
Yep.
Except for, well, I guess Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, I would say, is probably a strategy game.
Yeah, it's a sim.
I would put it broadly in that category.
Yeah.
You got EverQuest in there, one of the expansions, and then you have right above Civilization 3, Bookworm. Fucking Bookworm is down in there.
Yeah. Selling all of that.
As far as best-selling games in the U.S. in 2003, number 1 is Madden NFL 2004. Right. It traveled back in time to 2003 and became the best-selling game.
Well, they always release August the year before.
I know, but that ruins my joke. Yeah. So it time traveled. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire is behind it.
Yes.
Madden NFL had 2.3 million sales, and Pokemon is 2.2, so just barely behind it.
And what's more, that's just the PS2 version of Madden 04. That's not counting all the other platforms that it was on.
Then Super Mario Advance 4, Wind Waker, Vice City, Mario Kart Double Dash, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, Enter the Matrix. Here it is again. Yep. Medal of Honor Rising Sun, and NCAA Football 2004.
And also, of note there, Vice City came out the previous year. And it was still the 5th highest selling game of 2003.
And so it's looking at this, it's, let's see, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 PS2 games.
Yeah.
2 GameCube games. 3 GBA games. And that really feels indicative of the era. I mean, PS2 and GBA was it. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked.
2 GameCube games are on there is pretty shocking to me.
I was going to say, I'm shocked to see Wind Waker and Double Dash on there. I mean, granted, they were popular on the GameCube, but the GameCube wasn't popular.
I think part of it is on PS2, there was such a broad audience that it was pretty uncommon for a lot of the console's owners to buy the same game. But on GameCube, everybody who owned a GameCube bought Wind Waker. Everybody who owned a GameCube bought Double Dash. So it did contribute to those sales.
As far as release kind of by month, and we're just kind of fired through some of these, SimCity 4, which we talked about in that issue of CGW, came out in January. Panzer Dragoon Orta, which we just did an episode on.
Yep.
Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball came out and stirred some controversy.
Yeah.
For being realistically the stupidest fucking game ever.
Right. And I want to say this was the year after BMX XXX came out. Yeah, that was late the previous year. So this was a few months there where we had BMX XXX, and just a couple months later we had DOA Extreme Beach Volleyball. And parents were unhappy with me every time they walked into the store. Why are you selling this smut? As if I programmed it or something.
Why did you program that and then decide to sell it in the store, Saturn?
I don't know. What was I thinking?
Thank you for calling EB Games, where I personally programmed BMX XXX. How can I help you? How could you? Imagine being a JRPG fan the month that Dot Hack, Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, and Xenosaga Episode 1 all came out in the same month on PS2.
I don't have to imagine that, Justin. I was there.
Along with Master of Orion 3 and CNC Generals, which are pretty big strategy games on PC.
Yeah.
Man, that's like 500 hours of JRPG.
Yeah. Yeah,
in 1 month.
It was disgusting. I went the .hack route. One of my friends went Xenosaga, and we both intended to go to SMT3 Nocturne afterwards. And instead, we both just got really angry that we had to wait so long for the sequel to the games that we played.
And then next month in March, you get Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire and Wind Waker, which you never see Nintendo doing that kind of thing anymore, releasing multiple major tentpole franchises in the same month.
Right.
That's crazy to me. Golden Sun 2, Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, Vice City PC port, Enter the Matrix. Here it is in May.
Yeah.
Enter the Matrix.
Yep.
You're right, because I don't remember it being that big of a deal either. And I think it's because it flopped so fast.
Yeah, I do remember the day it came out. We put it in the demo kiosk because people had been waiting for it. And like we had a bunch of people come to pick it up, but we still had a bunch of copies left. They sent us like double our pre-order. Mm-hmm. And so we still had like 100 copies for PS2 and like 30 or 40 for every other platform. So we put one in, I think it was our Xbox, and like one of our regular customers who didn't pre-order it came in and he's like, "Oh, is that Matrix game?" And he's playing it for me. He says, "This is kind of shit." And I was like, "Oh no."
Uh-oh, it's going to be another State of Emergency 2.
Yep.
That was the only game that came out in my tenure at GameStop that I had multiple people come right back to the store and demand their full refund.
For me, it was State of Emergency 1 was the first time that happened, because it was Rockstar's first big release after GTA 3, so everybody expected GTA 3 Part 2, and they didn't get it, and they were angry.
People were pissed when State of Emergency 2 came out, and of course I said, well, you can trade it in. Yep. We can't give you a refund. You've opened it.
Yeah. Oh, that was not a fun conversation.
July, you get Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne, which was a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Pretty big deal. Sold very well.
Oh, yeah.
Silent Hill 3 in August, which I'm sure you were lining up for.
Oh, stoked. It's still a good game.
Soul Calibur 2 also in August, which was kind of the big fighting game of this era, outside of, like Smash Brothers.
Also, this was the most recent F-Zero came out then.
Yeah, this is still kind of in between Street Fighters. Mm-hmm. Street Fighter 3 is old at this point. Street Fighter 4 is still a ways off.
Even Marvel Cap 2 is a few years old at this point.
Yeah, Marvel Cap 2 is getting old. Marvel Cap 3 is still several years off. Soul Calibur 2, I think, just kind of came out right in that perfect era where there just wasn't a lot going on in fighting games.
DOA 3 was still pretty popular at this point. As was Tekken Tag Tournament was still doing pretty well.
I feel like neither one of those ever touched the popularity of Soul Calibur 2.
Yeah, Soul Calibur 2 definitely was a huge seller.
September, 2 great GBA games, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance and Boktai.
It's true, yeah.
October, we got the N-Gage. Yep. Oh, there it is. There Kirby Air Ride, Jack 2, Joe. Max Payne 2.
October was a packed month. You had Beautiful Joe, you had
Final
Max
Fantasy
Payne.
11 as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk November, because this month is fucking massive.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
A lot of stuff. Beyond Good and Evil, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, Monster Rancher 4. There you go. Harvest Moon, Friends of Mineral Town, arguably the best Harvest Moon game made. Mario and Luigi, Mario Kart Double Dash, Counter-Strike hit the Xbox for some reason. You got Final Fantasy X-2. There's just so much shit.
Yeah, also
in November.
The first Civ 3 expansion came out that month. That game Manhunt that people lost their shit over came out that month. Mm-hmm. 13 came out that month. It was a pretty big month. It felt like every week there was several games that were getting people to come in. SOCOM 2 came out that month. A new Medal of Honor came out. The last Legacy of Kain game came out. Like it was a busy month.
Yeah. And then December just came out and shit on everyone with Deus Ex, Invisible War, Pac-Man Versus, Fatal Frame 2, and Sonic Heroes.
No, Pac-Man Versus is good. And Fatal Frame 2 was very good.
Oh, is that one of the good ones? I never remember with the Fatal Frames.
The first two were great, and then there were games.
Anytime it's a horror game franchise, I just assume 50% of them are bad. Is that wrong of me?
No, that's pretty close.
That I just assumed that I'm like, oh, horror games, and there's more than 2 or 3 of them. Half of them are bad.
Really, that might be aiming low.
You think?
maybe like 65% are bad.
Crank it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So a lot of big stuff. I think February really drives home the fact that the PS2 was like the JRPG console.
Oh yeah.
Kind of until like the Switch. I mean,
yeah, it because the next generation there's nothing that was really a JRPG console. I can say that because I couldn't find shit to play for years.
Yeah.
And then the PS4 came around and it suddenly had JRPGs again, and then the Switch, and so now there's a renaissance again. But it was.
I feel like the Switch is really kind of and of course when I say this I'm discounting PC because you have to. Really kind of become the premier JRPG console.
I would say the PS4 is probably the PlayStation 4 and 5 are probably still the premier, but the Switch is getting most of the same ones that the PS4 and 5 get. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Let's talk notable events for 2003. Compile went out of business.
Aww.
Infogrames.
They're a French company.
Rebranded to Atari internationally.
Yes.
Enix absorbed Square. We got Square Enix.
Yes.
April 1st. What a day to announce anything.
Yeah, I assumed it was a joke when every news site was like, Square and Enix will now be Square Enix. And I was like, fuck you. No.
Yeah.
No.
That's the dumbest. No, it's Capcom Sega.
Yeah.
CNN reported that video games became a $10 billion industry for the first time, which is kind of backing up this sort of idea that gaming hit the mainstream with the PS2, which I've heard stated before, and I think I largely agree with.
Yeah.
The PS2 was the first time, and you could also argue the Wii, but I feel like the Wii was different.
Right.
The PS2 was really the first time that it was like everyone had a PS2.
Right.
I mean, everyone had one.
Also, it was a cheap DVD player.
Also that.
Yeah.
3DO went bankrupt.
Yeah.
I'm shocked they made it that long. I really am.
They were really riding off of Army Men games and high heat
I always
baseball.
forget they did Army Men. Yeah. The Virgin Interactive brand was officially retired as its new owners renamed it to Avalon Interactive. The next Xbox project was announced with ATI on board to make the GPU. PSP prototype was shown off. Yeah. Very exciting for me. I was a huge PSP fan. Still am.
You're the one.
Valve, I bought the PSP on like launch day. I traded in all my GBA stuff for it.
Oh no.
I was hard. I was like, hell yes. I am in.
I was not.
Valve released Steam out of beta.
Oh man.
Which is notable. I believe it was green at the time.
It was. Could you imagine if someday they made dedicated hardware for it?
That's fucking stupid. How are you going to make dedicated PC hardware, Saturn? Quit being so stupid.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Interplay closed Black Isle Studios.
Yeah, that's a shame.
And then finally, show favorite Data East went out of business. Don't say they're not your favorite. You're not allowed to say it as per your contract.
Oh, I'm sorry. I love Burger Time.
So, and obviously you also love Bad Dudes and Werewolf.
I love Burger Time.
Which are the best games Data East.
And Joe and Mac.
Oh no. I'll take Bad Dudes over Joe and Mac.
I would not.
Let's talk trends in design, because this is kind of an era that I feel like we talked about in our 1999 episode sometime recently, where we started to come into really big consolidations in the industry.
Right.
And we started to see kind of the current big players taking shape, Square Enix becoming Square Enix, EA and Ubisoft kind of became gargantuan.
Yeah.
In this era.
It was weird to see Ubisoft come out of nowhere too, because they always felt like kind of a smaller niche publisher in the 90s. And then suddenly they owned Rainbow Six out of nowhere. I think they bought the company that used to publish that. And so they had all the Tom Clancy games, and they had that reboot of Prince of Persia was so successful, and suddenly they just had a ton of really popular things and just skyrocketed up the charts, and I just didn't see it coming.
Medal of Honor, Halo, and Counter-Strike showed that FPS games could exist on home consoles. Probably Halo more than anything else, proving that home real I don't want to say real. GoldenEye existed before,
right?
Okay,
and
but real modern FPS games could be done on a console, right?
But keep in mind that because of how much the PS2 outsold the Xbox, while Halo was incredibly popular, Medal of Honor sold a ludicrous number of copies on PS2. For all those people,
and which Medal of Honor was 2003? Was it Rising Sun?
I believe so.
It was in a list somewhere.
I want to say the year before that was Allied Assault.
Was it Allied Assault? When was Frontline?
I don't remember. I think it was after that, but
I don't know why I would ask you that question. Like you,
right? But yeah, so they were definitely selling a ton of copies. This was before Call of Duty, so that was the premier World War II shooter. And so,
Medal of Honor was for sure. Call of Duty, like the first one might have existed here.
I want to say it was the next year. Or was it
next year?
It was around
the first one.
It was around this time. Either way, it was.
Yeah, I know Call of Duty 2 was 360 because that was Big Red 1, and that was like a 360 launch title.
Yeah.
And I do remember watching my friend play that and thinking, video games can never get more real than this.
Well, it looks like it was October of 2003 is when the first Call of Duty came out. On
Which
PC.
The first Call of Duty was not incredibly notable as compared to Medal of Honor. Like Medal of Honor, everyone I knew played Medal of Honor Frontline. We all owned Medal of Honor Frontline. We all played it. Some of us had the other ones, but Frontline was like the Medal of Honor we all played.
I was looking to see when it came out, and the first Call of Duty came out in late 2003 for PC, and then May of 2004 for Mac, and then November of 2004 for Engage.
Oh boy.
Yeah. That's the three consoles it was on.
And it went on to do nothing.
Yep, no one ever heard of it after
its
successful Engage release.
Vice City was huge in this era. Like I said, it was late 2002, but it was still extremely popular.
It was ported to both PC and Xbox in 2003, and that's also when GTA 3 was ported to Xbox because it came in that silver double pack. And it sold a ton of copies on Xbox, so it was still very popular.
Yeah. As far as final thoughts, this was kind of a huge year and a big time for me in gaming. It's right before I started working at a game store. I was starting to play bigger, more complex games. I was engaging directly with the games press. All my friends were super into gaming, which kind of wasn't a thing before high school. Like probably middle school, I had friends that played games, but by the time high school hit and the PS2 had kind of been out long enough that everybody was getting one, everyone played games. Literally everyone. It wasn't a thing where you had to be like, hey, do you play video games? It was just you knew that everyone did. And this is when video games were on TV for me. Actual video games, Saturn on the television, which is very exciting for me. I was very excited.
What about Nick Arcade?
I missed that too.
Really? I thought that ran until like the mid to late 90s.
I don't remember it. And I watched a lot of Nickelodeon. I have no memory of Nick Arcade.
I guess it did kind of end at the end of the 16-bit era now that I think about it.
So I missed all of it. All the video game, like game shows and stuff. I just happened to miss all of it. And I wonder.
You missed seeing Clarissa play Sonic 2.
I wonder because we talk a lot about how from a very young age you were very inundated into gaming. Yeah. And I seemingly wasn't.
Yeah.
And I wonder if some of it is just because I missed so much of that video game-based media zeitgeist. It was not until the PS2 that literally it seemed like everyone played video games.
I went straight from playing Atari today to playing with Power with the NES. I was brainwashed with all the marketing from the youngest age possible.
I do just kind of, I think it's funny how I feel like we always talk about this of like how you were like from like very small age.
Oh yeah.
Very tuned into gaming. And I always played games, but I was not like really in tune with it as a hobby.
Yeah, it's weird.
And I think that might be kind of the missing puzzle piece that wasn't there. I didn't have that. Like video games weren't on the TV. I remember I was obsessed with the movie The Wizard because the idea that a video game or because it was many video games, the idea that video games would be in a movie that they would show in a movie theater was insane to me. That movie came out when I was 2, And I remember just being like, man, I wish they made more movies with video games in them. This is dumb. Because like also in this era, in this like PS2 era, it was very weird. Media depictions of video games in the late 90s, early 2000s were very bad.
Yeah.
They never showed any screens. They never showed first-party controllers. They never talked about first-party hardware ever.
And when they did, it was always wrong.
Yeah, it was always just super generic and incorrect and bad. And so I grew up thinking that the media just didn't know what the hell video games were.
They didn't.
When in reality, they kind of did for several years there, and then they decided it wasn't popular or whatever.
Yeah. Well, they decided they didn't want people playing games because then they weren't watching TV. So
there you go.
They couldn't advertise games that heavily, or people would just stop watching the television.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't get, it was not until this era, this like 2003-ish PS2 era, that it was like, oh, suddenly everyone knows about video games. Everyone's playing video games. Video games are a thing that the broad culture is not only aware of, but engaging with.
Yeah.
Before that, it was just kind of this weird thing that if in elementary school, I would not have assumed that other kids like knew about video games or played video games or had video games.
That's weird.
But by PS2 era, I did.
Yeah.
You know?
So this was when I had been working at EB for over a year by the time 2003 started. And so by this point I was disillusioned. Like when I first started there, I was like, oh man, games. I love games. I want to talk about games all the time. I talk to my friends.
Right as I'm really coming into the industry, you're all jaded and upset by it.
Well, the thing is, like, going into it, I was like, I'm so down to just talk to people about video games and sell them video games and make everybody happy. And then I get there and they're like, no, I just need the new Madden. And I'm like, but look at this new Metal Gear. It's right here.
Yeah.
And so by this point, I had already kind of, like, that veneer had washed away, and I was just like, oh, it's another person who's going to buy the dumbest game I possibly have. Do you have BMX Triple X? I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
It's got boobies.
Yeah. Yeah. And plenty of people would come in and just be like, what's the cheapest skateboard game on PlayStation? Like cheapest in which way? I have $8. Oh, you want a used copy of Tony Hawk 1.
There you go.
But yeah, it was it kind of jaded me. However, this is the year.
Let me just interrupt and say that buying Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 for $8, that's a fucking steal for a great game. I don't know why you're bitching.
Yeah. But this was the year that Big Rigs Over the Road Racing came out. So it wasn't a bad year. So
there you go. Finally, Big Rigs Over the Road Racing. And finally, something
you played
we can look forward to. Why would I have played Big Rigs Over the Road Racing?
Certainly you've seen others play it, though, right?
Oh, I've seen it.
Okay,
I'm fully aware of Big Rigs Over the Road Racing.
That's all that needs to be known, then. It's fine.
All right. Well, you know what else needs to be known is our Patreon. It's at patreon.com/retrowarriors. You can get Talking Wizards, which we post sometimes when I remember. You can get After Hours, which I need to post tomorrow. It's going to be the 5th tomorrow.
Yep.
And you can get all sorts of other things I also habitually forget about. And it's a good time. So we would appreciate your support at the Patreon if you want to do that.
You know, just the other day in the Discord, I was telling somebody about something that happened on the most recent After Hours. I didn't realize we hadn't even bothered to post it.
We should have usually the After Hours should go up within 48 hours of recording.
Oh.
That's kind of our
It's been a
timeline.
week.
Did we miss one?
No, it's just been a week since we recorded it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it should be up already. Right?
Is it?
Now I'm getting nervous. You're making me so nervous right now, Saturn. Did I forget to post an uncut?
No, not an uncut. After Hours.
Oh, After Hours. No, After Hours has not been posted yet. I'm sorry. I've this whole time in my head, I thought you were talking about an uncut.
No.
You're giving me panic attacks about things that I did that I'm worried I didn't do because I care so much about our patrons. They're very important to us. Yeah. Specifically, the following people, starting with Mr. Jiggyfly.
And Chris Ruppersberg.
And Puff Puff Please.
And Pogs are back.
Keith Reynolds.
And Freyskungen.
David Cavallari.
Logan Sharp.
David Nethery.
And Chuck Angeline.
are all the people that I just don't want to disappoint. I just want to know that you're happy and that we're providing some value and something to brighten your Monday morning or Saturday afternoon if you're on the uncut.
Or whenever you have time.
Whenever you want to. I mean, we've been having issues where you have to ration shows lately because we've been recording in weird bursts.
Right.
Anyway, thanks so much for listening to the show. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together.